All right, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Purpose and Pixie Dust Podcast. Lindsay Dollinger here, and I am super excited to be interviewing Amanda Walker. So, Amanda, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited and honored to be here and share whatever wisdom I can with your community.
Yay. So I always like to start these so that everyone gets to get a good understanding of your journey, who you are, what do you do, and how did you kind of get to that place? Because I feel like everyone has this really fun like evolution journey that just kind of shares, because it is a journey. No one knows exactly what they're going to do and then they're immediately successful. So tell us how you got here.
Yeah, and I also think with your journey, you don't really know how like the breadcrumbs have been laid until you're here and you can look back. And I'm sure in 10 years, I'm going to be saying the same thing again. But yes, so I have basically been a coach for 25 years of my life, which actually plays into this equation really strongly. My first coaching job was coaching Pee Wee basketball. I was corralling, it was like herding cats, little small children to play basketball. It was in that experience, though, that I first kind of began to fall in love with just the art of coaching and being able to teach someone like a step-by-step, framework to be able to have success and to be able to come alongside them and truly like relish in their success. And I knew for me, I was hooked then. And so that led to 25 years of coaching in some form, whether it was sports. I became a high school teacher and I was coaching formally sports as well, but also coaching fellow educators. I went to grad school for coaching and teaching. And then I had no idea that I knew kind of that teaching wasn't going to be the end of a career. I knew I couldn't see myself inside of that career for 20, 30 years. I knew there was more, but it was kind of my own health and fitness journey that led me to opening up my own virtual coaching practice in the health and nutrition and fitness space, and love that. Like learned so much, gained more insight and understanding around business, which I had zero training in. And through the growth of that business, I just started attracting a lot of people in the online space, specifically coaches, service providers that were like, hey, I want to do that. I want to grow a business to the success that you have. And so over the last 3+ years, I've been business coaching. And more specifically, though, I love coaching coaches, both on the business side, but more passionately, I'm excited to help coaches be better coaches and expand their toolbox of coaching and not just be a subject matter expert, but really be an expert in coaching that subject matter so they can elicit, more intense results and more specific results from their clients. And so now that's where I am, coaching coaches and truly feeling just a lot of gratitude for the journey.
Oh my gosh. That is like that's a huge, like, it's so funny because you're on the same like path, like you mentioned with coaching, but like you went from like the little kids, then teachers, and now business coaches. And I love that. It's kind of actually similar to my story, like a little bit different, a little paralleled. But I coached cheerleading. So yeah, like a little bit different, the other side of it, but cheer coaches are a whole nother kind of crazy, but we'll
that's for a whole nother conversation.
I know, I'm lumping myself in that one. Okay, so are you still in the classroom, or do you do the business coaching full time?
Oh yeah, I've been full time for 6 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So
awesome.
I left the teaching world 10 years ago, and have never looked back and will never go back.
I hear that from a lot of teachers who have ended up shifting their career path. What did that transition look like for you? Was it something where you were like gave yourself a deadline? Was it just like it kind of made sense? What did that look like? Because I know there are a lot of people who are contemplating leaving jobs, the corporate job, and like nervous to do that, scared to do that. So talk to us about what that looked like.
I may have more of an atypical experience. I left because I was part-time when I left, had 2 small children at home, and we decided that I would go part-time. My husband at the time was on the SWAT team for the city that we live in. He was working night shift, so it just didn't make sense for me to work full-time. So I didn't want to give it up because I still wanted like something for myself. So I went part-time, but the kicker for me, or the pivotal moment, was when I was getting my paychecks. And at the time it was $623 for 2 weeks of part-time teaching. So not just 1 week, but, and so we really looked at each other and had this moment of like, what the heck are we doing? And so I left to be home with the kids full time. He could pick up an extra overtime shift and make more basically than I was even making. And quickly I realized this is not for me, this full-time mom stuff. I love my kids. They're amazing, but I needed like a passion to pour myself into. And so that's when I had been kind of in the background going on my own journey. I have a degree in physiology. I had a lot of experience in the health and nutrition space, but I never had quite imagined that I would be using that with my own passion and personal journey to start guiding people. They just organically, people started coming to me saying like, I see your results. Will you help me as well? So I left, not with a specific deadline, but what I will say is it gave me the space to just go all in from the beginning. And I didn't at first. I was a little scared. It was a lot scared. It was, I was calling it a hobby, a baby business is what I referred to it as a lot, until I really had to move through those imposter feelings to own it. And it's been, full-time growing, ever since.
I was going to say, I feel like I see that a lot with women, especially in the beginning stages of our business, when we're not quite ready to like put ourselves out there and say we're doing something like wholly or completely, where we're like, oh, it's just our side hustle, or it's, the baby business. And we tend to like make it something smaller. And I love that you mentioned that imposter syndrome. How did you work through that? Or do you have any tips for women listening to this to working through that, to like owning that, okay, I'm actually going to do this and give it my all. And I don't care that people know that I'm doing that.
Yeah. I mean, imposter syndrome is one of the things I coach my coaches on, if not the most, it's one of the top 3 things that, are elements of sabotage or limiting beliefs, decisions that really hold us back. I think I could offer a couple thoughts around it, is just the notion that they are thoughts and thoughts are not facts. And we have the ability to believe them or not. And the second component that there's a lack of congruency sometimes. So we have this thing called the conscious mind, which is the thing we're aware of, right? That makes decisions, conscious memories. And we have this unconscious mind, which is the part that's kind of holds all of our belief systems that we may not be consciously aware of as we have grown up. And so what I find at this place is, when we're about to like leap into full entrepreneurship, is our conscious mind, we're like, I'm all in. But unconsciously, we still lack like a belief, and also like just in our core of true vision that life can exist outside of this like box that we've been shown our whole life is the place to go. And so the only thing that helps us overcome that is action. Right? We have to, at some point, action strengthens belief. And so we just have to, set a deadline or put ourselves, hire a coach or be in a community of like-minded people where we can say, all right, this is my commitment to myself, and there's never going to be a great time. The finances are never going to line up perfectly, because that's what I often hear is it's a financial thing. And that's just code for I need something else to blame instead of taking self-responsibility and ownership for what it is that I really want to create my life around.
Ooh, I love that. I love that so much, because I do feel like the excuse that we hear a lot, and sometimes I'm sure there is legit validity to that, but I think the majority of the time it's exactly like what you said. We're using it as that fallback, like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that because I know then if I invest in that coach, I could actually get the results, or it'll be my fault when I don't show up for stuff. And I definitely think that's a subconscious block holding a lot of women back from investing, like you said, in a coach. Mm-hmm. So you said you had women. I'm assuming your ideal client is probably a woman, right?
For the most part, yeah, mostly women. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you said you had people coming to you, and that's how you like asking you, and it just became like an organic part of what your business evolved in. Were you using social media? Like, how were people knowing what you were doing?
So the first year of my social media was pictures of food. And I didn't start that till about a year after business. So that just gives you if you follow me now on social media, you would be like, oh, okay, wow, she started there, which I think is important to understand, that it, where we are now, it's great to see where somebody's come from. So truthfully, I was my billboard. I was walking into the gym and people were asking me like, what are you doing? Can you teach me? And so it started with, a few clients, and those clients were having amazing results and they would tell more. And to this day, even to our growth level, word of mouth referrals still are our number one leading source of clients. And those are my favorite clients. And this is how I teach my coaches strategy and frameworks around how to replicate this, because a common mistake I see, many coaches out there are touting their own progress, right? Which is great, right? Personal progress. We want to show that we have credibility and legitimacy, but the real proof of your ability to coach someone or guide someone is their results. And often we're not showcasing those, or it's that they don't exist, which then tells me that there's a mindset block around being able to facilitate results with a client. And so that's the work that we need to do. So it's usually one or the other. Like, we need support on figuring out a workflow to share results, or second is we're not actually getting results, and let's figure out why that is.
I love that. So what do you recommend to someone who's like brand new, just getting started, and they don't have those client testimonials or results yet? Do you have something you recommend for them?
Yeah, you go coach the heck out of people for free. And it can be family, it can be friends. You are just really transparent. Like, I'm looking to build a portfolio of results, and we don't want inauthentic results. We want them to really tout your abilities. And so that's what I would say is start with some free. I actually don't love lots of free clients. I really encourage my girls to get one free client, use that as your, kind of beta experience, so that you can kind of build the ship as you're sailing alongside your client. And then from there, even if it's, a bartering system, or even if it's a small dollar amount, just for you to be able to have some sort of energetic exchange between you and that client to build those testimonials.
I love that. So when you are getting started, not you actually, when your clients are getting started coaching, do you recommend, because I've heard both sides, do you recommend they start with a high ticket offer and doing the one-on-ones, low ticket offer? Do you recommend like a product suite? How do you work through that?
I don't think that there's a right way. And if somebody tells you there is, you should run the other direction. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I really believe it's so highly personal, and it has a lot to do with the client's money story and their money journey. So, for example, if I have a client who's an amazing coach and she has a lot of money stuff, and she's afraid to even say, to say $1,000 as an investment, then we want to start where we can start, right? And there might be another amazing coach who's ready, and her money story is she's done work around it, or she has no baggage she's bringing in, and she's ready for a higher ticket offer. The thing about pricing is there is no structure, there is no formula. People say there's no formula. It's about, how are you ready to show up, and what feels energetically mutual for your services. And for some people, that could be $1,000 for 6 months. And for somebody else, that could be $4,000 for 6 months. Ultimately, though, where I would want to take all coaches is to have an offering suite. So to have a hierarchy of offers that make sense and create a clear funnel of opportunity for them to create client retention. But that can come with time. First, it's like, let's get you out there. Let's create one offer that feels congruent for you. And then we're going to learn through that offer. And then that can flesh out, the offers that may go around it. Or you might find like that's the offer, and the only thing that we adjust is pricing for years to come, until finally we're at that point where we're ready to scale and we grow from there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And it's so interesting because I feel like everyone does have their their methodology for pricing, or I know I've worked with coaches before who are like absolutely only high ticket, or some that are absolutely low ticket and then work your way up. And it's just so interesting. But I love your philosophy on, I do think it truly depends, because there's definitely been times in my business where I'm like, I'm not ready for this. Or even thinking about like the low ticket, in order to make enough money off of it, you have to sometimes have a larger audience, to actually make that profitable for you. So like finding that balance can be something definitely tricky for sure.
And it's also like, what brings you joy right now in your business?
Yes.
We overlook this. And sometimes high ticket masterminds bring me a crap ton of joy. Last year, I didn't run my high ticket mastermind because I wanted to focus on putting my energy into low ticket offers to fill the top of my funnel and bring, and then now we're back in 2022. So it's also very like, every year doesn't have to be the same in business. I don't recommend chasing squirrels and changing new offers all the time, which is also, a struggle I see as new entrepreneur, but joy and fun and that matters a lot to the big picture.
Yeah. So do you use social media for your business? And if so, what's your preferred platform?
Yes. So I definitely use social media. Instagram is where I hang out the most. Exploring, some of the other platforms. Pinterest is second to that. We leverage Pinterest quite a bit. And I'm exploring the TikTok and LinkedIn world right now a little bit as we just hired a new social media intern. And so my goal is to off level all of that by the end of this year, I hope.
That's great. How are you liking LinkedIn? I was just talking to a client about LinkedIn, so I'm curious.
Yeah, LinkedIn. I think I had like thoughts around it being very corporate driven. The only thing I'm not loving about it is it's just the relationship building in general on any platform. But in LinkedIn, I'm really noticing it's like the moment you show up, I'm being bombarded by they're putting up a smoke and mirrors front of authentic communication, and it has nothing to do with that. So that feels kind of icky, but you don't have to engage in that. Right. But I'm still in this learning stages of what's working and how do I want to show up in that space specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So do you recommend your coaches do Instagram if they're like, I'm going to pick one?
Yeah, again, it's totally personally it depends on the person and the community that they're serving. If they're a corporate speaker and a corporate coach, then it definitely wouldn't be Instagram. It would be LinkedIn, right? If they're a blogger, it might be, or let's say they're a health coach who's, blogging, and, Pinterest might be a really great opportunity. So I don't think that it's specific to each, there's a specific place that's a best practice to start. I think it's really like find out where your people are hanging out and go to that platform and get confident in delivering content in that platform, and then begin to expand into other areas.
Yeah. So have you always had an assistant or someone helping you at your business, or is this like the first, and what's that look like?
Yeah, about a year in, like once we started hitting up to that 6-figure mark, definitely the light bulbs were like, I need support. I didn't know what it looked like, never run a business, never had a team. And so I reached out, at the time to a coach and a few colleagues that were a bit ahead of me. And so the first person I onboarded was a VA. Though I went through a few VAs until finding my current VA, who's worked for me now for, I think, 4-ish years.
Oh, wow.
And second to that, my team consists also of my podcast editor, who's been with me since the beginning of the podcast. But I think the massive game changer for team was hiring a full-time online business manager. We're going on, I think, almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years, because she brought freedom to me. And that was an area she, runs everything behind the scenes. And that's what has been just so valuable. Even if my commitment to hiring her was like, even if profit doesn't go up this year, if I can bring in the same revenue and have more freedom and she's doing more things, then this is a massive life win. And it's very powerful.
So what would you tell someone who is nervous about hiring for the first time?
So before hiring, my suggestions would be don't hire just because somebody told you to. Be very clear on what it is that they're going to come in and do for your business. And so when my clients are in that scaling stage where they're starting to feel like I need support, and one of the things is like, I don't know where to start. Like, I don't know where to bring someone into. So my advice for you, if you're in that position, would be start creating, open up a Google Doc and say like possible VA tasks. And anytime you're doing something inside your business that answers two things: A, it's not fun, it doesn't bring you joy, and B, somebody else could do. That doesn't mean that, like, yes, I know we like to micromanage, but somebody else could actually do if you let go of micromanaging, start creating a list, right? And once we have that list, we can start to group them into categories. And I like hiring someone on a project basis so that I can kind of see, like our intern, our social media intern right now, we're on a 90-day trial. And so we're working on one specific thing right now where I'm bringing her on so I can test, so I can teach her. And so I think the same is great. This is your business. And so just because somebody comes in doesn't mean you have to, it's collaborative. And so that's where I would say to start small. Can be a couple hours a week. That was my first VA. I hired her for 2 hours a week. She worked 8 to 10 hours a month for me. And it gave me so much flexibility.
Yeah, I love that. I did the same thing with a Google Doc. And then it worked out great, because then when I finally decided to hire a VA for the first time, all I did was like add passwords on it and like shared it with her. I was like, this is exactly it. And this is the things. Where did you find your first VA? Do you remember?
Honestly, I don't even remember at this point.
That's another question I asked a lot. I'm like, well, I put out like a Facebook search and someone recommended someone, is how I did it the first time.
Yeah. Now we go into networks and have a screening process. It looks a lot different now, but I think in the beginning, I just kind of reached out to colleagues and was like, hey, does anybody, know anybody looking? Yeah. And then I did hire for my OBM. I did go through a matching agency. And so I put out a job description and they helped like drill down. And then we conducted, interviews to see who was the best fit for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that word of mouth, man, and those recommendations or testimonials for something can be huge for any part of your business.
Mm-hmm.
So your podcast, when did you start podcasting and how did that work into your business?
Yeah. So we're about to celebrate our 200th episode in a couple weeks. And so thank you. I've been podcasting. It's a collaborative effort. I haven't done it alone at all. About 3 years ago, give or take, somewhere around that date. Mm-hmm. What I started really realizing is that I was kind of forcing blogging because somebody, again, had told me, oh, blogging's where it's at. I didn't enjoy it. And what I also came to realize was that a cohesive content strategy is important. Eventually, I try to walk all my clients towards having some sort of consistent content strategy outside of social media, right? Because that is earned media. At a drop of a dime, that could shut down. It could be taken away, and it's going to impact your ability to meet your people. So we want to think of like bigger terms. What does the long term look like? And I was with my coach at the time, and I was like kind of in this place, and it was a very woo moment, but I had a very clear like visual download that like my people could hear me. And so I was like, I got to start a podcast. And so that's kind of how it came up. And it started with, most of the emphasis on health coaching, life coaching under the umbrella called Feel Amazing Naked. And then once I had clarity that I wanted to coach coaches and improve and grow the integrity of the coaching space, it's since shifted to the Best Damn Coach podcast.
I love that. I just actually rebranded mine, not entirely the content, but the name of it this summer. And it was a hard process because I was like so attached to the first. It's like I said, essentially the same kind of thing, but the way I had evolved in like that name and that brand, it was a hard it was a hard shift over for sure. To like give up that part. I'm like, man, I got to go all in now on this thing because I'm giving up that name, all that behind.
Clarity.
So how do you incorporate your podcast into your strategy for either finding new clients or your business?
The big component of it is just this place of service and fulfilling your, however you feel spiritually, but like your purpose on earth. And I do feel that podcast is a way for me to give out free content and connect with people, even if they don't ever become a client or a member in our community, paid for programs or something like that. So a big, huge part of me does that because I do feel that allows the content to be accessible for the people that are looking for it and who desire it. Yeah. And so beyond that, though, it's a place to build value. It's a place to serve, right? In this world, there's a lot of saturation of coaches. And so when you have a podcast, people get to hear your voice, they get to immediately know, is this, it allows rapport to be built very quickly because we hear tonality, we hear cadence of voice, a lot of unconscious things that are happening that we don't even know. Like if you've ever listened to a podcast and immediately you're like, oh, right. That's because unconsciously you weren't meeting rapport with that person. And so when this happens, right, and you start to find value from someone, the possibility that at the right moment in time, you're going to be in a pain and they have the solution for you may present itself. And so we monetize it through our programs, right? And, inviting people to come further with us into our funnels, through our challenges, our free, freebies that we download. And then of course, consistently letting people know we're here to serve them at a, higher level, whether it's the Best Sam Coach program or one-to-one coaching or our higher level programs. That's the bottom of the funnel strategy.
Yeah. When I got started with it, I didn't even really think of it as being such an integral part of my client journey, because I love now hearing like, oh, I found you on your podcast. Like every time I hear that, I'm like, yes.
Yes, nailing it.
Definitely wasn't the goal. Like, I definitely was coming from the place of serving. And I actually started mine because at the time I was a leader in my direct sales company, and I was all the time hopping into my team group, like doing trainings like this on a video, and a handful of people would watch them. And I felt like it just was going on deaf ears. And I'm like, I have got to get all of this out somewhere where people can like willingly tune into me. So that's like how mine got started.
I also think podcasting is very much a healing journey for me. It's a place to air out my stuff. It's some of the most intimate conversations I have with myself happen there. And I share a lot of parts of me that, are sacred too. And I think that people get that and they can feel that authenticity, immediately or not.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And when you said, when you turn on a podcast sometimes and you're like, ooh, I've definitely had those moments. And it's so weird. You're like, I don't know why I don't like this, but I'm not vibing with this. Like,
yeah. And people have that with us, right?
Yeah.
People equally are like, ooh, right. Or they come along with us, the transition of my podcast. I know I lost a lot of amazing listeners that really were there for the health focused stuff. And when I stopped having those conversations, sadly, like I wasn't for them anymore. And that's also part of shedding the skin as an entrepreneur and allowing and giving yourself permission to evolve and step into what feels, really good for you.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. One last question. What would you say to the woman listening to this who is doing something in corporate? Maybe she's a teacher, doing something differently, but wants to transition into coaching. Kind of like maybe a couple baby steps on getting started, or maybe even like time management, fitting it into your day, especially since a lot of people do start with a one-on-one client or two to get those testimonials. I hear a lot from people is like, well, I work full time and then I have kids and then I do this. And by the time I get home, I don't have time to work on my business. Do you have any tips for those women listening?
At the end of the day, those things are still, we can always have those reasons we don't make things a priority. If this matters to you and you care about leaving that corporate world, you care about the people you serve, you will find the space and time. I am not a unicorn. Neither are you. Neither are the millions of other entrepreneurs that have created a thriving, monetary, profitable business practice around that. And so what I would say, if you're specifically interested in coaching, is give yourself permission to coach a client at a time, even in the beginning, and have one client, keep a consistent schedule. So, every Tuesday at 4:00, I'm going to meet said client, right? Or whatever that looks like for you, but create a regular routine so that you know what to expect. And there's structure in the growth of the business. The other thing that I think is overlooked is a mentor once gave this advice for me, and I tell it to everyone that I possibly can who's in the business space, is do one thing a day to move the needle forward in your business. If it's an email, if it's coaching a client, if it's making a social media post, because those tiny little nuggets stack up. They've literally brought in millions of dollars of profit for me. And that's because I've been consistent the whole time. And I've never allowed the excuse of I have all these other things going on. Did I sometimes just do that one thing in a day? Yes. Were there times where I did 100 of those one things? Yes. But the momentum kept coming with me because I committed. That was the one commit. Two things I committed to in my business at some point that I think have really panned out. One thing a day. And the second is emailing my newsletter every week. And I've done that consistently for 4.5 years. I've never missed a week because I made that connection to the people. And so I think anchor yourself in those practices that you can commit to simply and easily, because they absolutely pay dividends when you look back years down the road.
Oh my gosh, guys, you need to pause this, rewind like a minute, and just listen to everything she just said, because it's so true. And that baby step, I had a mentor tell me that as well. She was like, even if you don't write the whole email, like open up your computer and write a line of that email and click save so that you are doing one thing toward your business today. Because 9 times out of 10, once you get started, you're going to finish that task anyway. But one thing, because as soon as you put your foot off the gas, it's so much harder to get the car going again. And I'm like, oh,
Yes.
that's true.
Yes.
I love
Pivotal.
that. Okay. So do you have, this is one question I like to ask everyone. Well, 2 rapid fire questions. 1, morning or nighttime routine and or both. And a little snippet real quick, what that looks like for you.
Yes, definitely morning routine. I wake up, I try to lay in bed right now and be like I meditate, but I try to be in like a theta, very light, like almost light sleep still, for the practices of installation. And then it's usually frothy coffee with my husband in front of our fireplace. And typically I try to read just 10 pages a day from a book. And then journaling is sometimes falling in there too. So it's usually like the succession of those might differ, but it's usually those few things before I start the gas pedal. And then it's usually work, get the kids ready, work out, come back to work, and the day progresses.
Nice. Yeah, I like to break stuff up like that too. And then a nice segue there. Best and or most recent personal development book that you have read or business book that you would recommend?
Well, the one I'm currently reading is one that's overdue, and it's The Energy Bus. And I've heard I needed to read it for like years, and I never have. So it's like a super, super fast read. But my most favorite personal development book of all time is The Big Leap. If you've not read it, it needs to be on your list immediately, because it's heavily mindset based, and it just really helps you understand some of the blocks or just see them in a new light and reframe them. And I read it to my mastermind every year. I gift it to people all the time because it's definitely of high value.
Yeah, both of those. Guys, I'll link those in the show notes for you. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you know the story. I'll just tell you super quick because I promised we would hop off here. The Energy Bus is the very first personal development book I ever read. And when I very first started business, and I solely, and this is like no medical claim or anything, but long story short, my mom had just passed away from breast cancer, and I was just like a hot mess. And that book solely like took me out of the depression that I was in. Like, I mean, obviously there was some like mental work or whatever, but that book. So anytime I'm talking to someone, they're like, you know, I'm in a low place, and I'm like, you have to read The Energy Bus.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that it supported you that way.
And it's such a quick read too. So
yes.
I hope you like it.
I'm halfway through. I just started it a couple days ago.
I was going to say, yeah, you'll probably finish it by weekend. Awesome. So Amanda, tell everyone where they can connect with you, and I'll put all this in the show notes as well, guys. So you don't have to write anything down. You can just click on it.
Cool. I do like to hang out the most on Instagram and my stories. Come hang out with me there. Introduce yourself. I'm A Walk My Way. And you can visit our website if you are at amanda-walker.com. If you're a coach and you want support, our podcast is a great place to learn, more about the art of coaching, the business building around coaching, and also just self-coaching. And that's the Best Damn Coach podcast. And I'll just offer the freebie that's there on the website as well as 10 really powerful questions that you can keep in your toolbox for coaching to have at your disposal. Because I think questions are an extremely valuable and integral part of coaching. And you can grab those at amanda-walker.com/questions.
Ooh, awesome. I can't wait to grab those. And we have a lot of network marketers listening. Guys, if you're doing this and you're doing coaching calls with your team, still download that freebie, because those sorts of questions can really help you, I'm sure.
I mean, and we welcome network marketers inside of our programs. They are coaches. They title themselves coaches, even if they resist the term coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know just from my own clients that oftentimes there's not a lot of discussion in the network marketing space around mastery as a coach and tools in the toolbox. And that's one of the reasons I literally started this community, was because there is a lot of people that aren't getting that training. And I want any coach to be a better coach. So we welcome you for sure.
Love that. Yes. Because I feel like a lot of times, especially when they hear that I'm talking to someone specifically about coaching, the network marketer brain just kind of shuts down. Like, that's not for me. And I'm like, no, like, this is totally how I grew my network marketing business, was a lot of these skills and being able to effectively coach people on my team. So,
well, and I also think it does the network marketing space a disservice, because part of the friction often between, and I'm just going to be transparent about this in the coaching world and the network marketing space, is the title of coach. And it can be very, it's loosely regulated. So why not then, if you're going to take on that name, like fully embody it and be freaking the best damn coach you can be.
Yeah.
So that you give credibility and, you bring more integrity to that space.
100%. Yes. So everyone, download her freebie. It will help you no matter what industry you're in, we promise. And Amanda, thank you so much. This was so helpful. Lots of great nuggets in here, guys. And please make sure to share this on social when you listen to this and give us a tag. Thank you so much for having me. You're so welcome. Bye-bye.